With WesternUnion.com's 4-star rated mobile app, send money fast virtually anywhere for just about anything. Download the free Western Union mobile app today from iTunes or the Play Store, or visit WesternUnion.com to learn more.
Can you feel it?
Durant for three, bingo! Right down the chute, Kevin Durant.
NBA Lockdown with Bruce Bowen.
Gets it to James. Here's a three for the win. Goal! It is good!
The NBA Lockdown Podcast with Bruce Bowen. Along with three-time NBA champion Bruce Bowen, here's ESPN.com NBA columnist Israel Gutierrez.
Welcome into another edition of the NBA Lockdown Podcast with Bruce Bowen. I'm Israel Gutierrez. Welcome back, Bruce. Before we get into some playoff previews, let's discuss Mike D'Antoni's resignation.
His biggest fault, in many ways, is that he's not Phil. And in a lot of ways, that's not his fault. But with the injuries and a roster in transition, I don't think anyone's going to really take this group of guys and excel at this point. You know, it's one of the cycles that teams go through.
That was Steve Nash, and that was back on March 24th on the Colin Cowherd radio show, discussing sort of the unfortunate circumstances that Mike D'Antoni has been in his couple of years in L.A. Bruce, to me, I think this is pretty simple. The guy never got a fair shake there. You know, his first year of that roster that had the big names but didn't necessarily have them in shape where they could perform. You had Steve Nash missing a lot of the year. You had Dwight Howard in and out of the lineup, still had back problems that he was fighting through. Pau Gasol, same thing, in and out. And Kobe obviously didn't finish the season, but had a stretch there where he was out. And, you know, in terms of the makeup of the roster, wasn't necessarily to Mike D'Antoni's liking, so there would have been an adjustment period anyway, even if everybody was healthy, which they weren't. And then you have this year, which, frankly, Mike did a masterful job just keeping this team winning any games at all because of that roster. I mean, the turnover on that roster was ridiculous. The players they had to play with, I mean, he turned Kendall Marshall into a reasonable NBA player. I mean, I think Mike D'Antoni asking for the extension, not getting it, and resigning, I think he feels as free as anybody, just not having to be part of this sort of rebuild as opposed to the team that he thought he was getting to begin with.
Well, Izzy, you bring up something here. When he first took the job, that was his decision. As a coach, you want to have an effect on guys and things of that nature. You had a decent roster to begin with. I'm talking about prior to the Kobe's injury and things of that nature with Dwight Howard. He didn't know how to make Dwight Howard and Pau Gasol, how they could get along on the floor together. So I don't feel sorry for what he had as far as this season. This season was unfortunate, but when he first came in, no, it wasn't anything unfortunate about that. He had two big men that one of them had success with another big man in Andrew Bynum, that's Pau Gasol, and he won a championship. Now you bring in Dwight Howard, and it wasn't able to work. And you...
But wait, Bruce, wait. He had a big man in Pau Gasol who from the beginning didn't even like the system and wanted to be stubborn about it. And he had a big man in Dwight Howard who wasn't himself coming off of back surgery. And we know his personality also, when he gets the blame, doesn't really respond very well. What I'm saying is you know, he still got them into the playoffs despite all the injuries and everything else. That team wasn't – it didn't matter who was the coach of that team, Bruce, given the injuries and given their having to come together and giving their personalities. It was going to take more than a year to get that team going. Like, people just thought it was going to be instantaneous. Bam, this team's going to be in the finals. In retrospect, it wasn't even going to be close to that regardless of who was coaching that team.
Nope. I don't agree again with Izzy in the simple fact
Okay, so you tell me the coach that would have taken that roster to the finals.
Well, I didn't say to the finals. They would have had more success than what they had. They were just a drama scene that first year with D'Antoni, and for you to be a coach and not be able to utilize the talent that you have, that's what – it's not like you came in and said, I'm going for this talent, that talent, and that talent. You had something there that you could have done a better job with in the first year. I'm not talking about after the injury of Kobe Bryant. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when he first took on this opportunity, and had he done well, had he done better, then maybe you would have had more you would have had Dwight Howard there the following season. But I know that we're speaking of things, the ifs, ands, and buts, but that's just my thoughts on the first year there. I didn't feel sorry for him This year, that was a little different. He had to work with what he had, and I commend him, even in fact of the shortcomings that I feel that he has as a coach. I commend him for going to the Lakers and saying, hey, you know what? If we're going to do this, I got to have this. As far guarantee my time as coach, because it's going to take time with this group, and I need that kind of time, not only for them to buy into what I'm talking about and what I'm trying to go forward with, but also to really affect change, to have a say in what we do as far as who we're bringing in and things of that nature.
They had Pau Gasol for 49 games that year. They had Steve Nash for 50 games that year. They had zero bench to speak of. He had to sort of resuscitate Anton Jameson to play 76 games. He had Earl Clark and made something out of him. I'm not saying feel sorry for D'Antoni in that first year. I'm saying give him credit for even making the playoffs in a deep Western Conference with what he had to work with. He had Metta World Peace still having to play 75 games, and we all recognize that Metta was well past his prime and not ready not still capable of contributing to a high-level playoff team. That roster was not everything it's made up to be, or it was made up to be, and I think he did a fine job just getting them to the playoffs, especially with those clashing personalities. Nobody has any idea what it's like to coach Kobe Bryant, Dwight Howard, and Pau Gasol when they're all angry and crotchety and all that stuff.
Pau Gasol is one of the sweetest individuals, individual in the game.
Sweetest individual, been trying to get that coach fired for 2 years. I'll tell you how sweet he is. So anyway, let's quickly just discuss the idea of where the Lakers go from here, because it's again, this is not something to rejoice, despite what Magic Johnson tweeted, and I thought in a classless manner on the day a guy resigns from his position. This is not a day to rejoice for the Lakers. It's not like they're going to hire a coach and all of a sudden get that much better until they round out a roster that can compete in the Western Conference. Who comes in to this team and immediately improves them from that standpoint, from the coaching standpoint, and makes this team a playoff-ready team next year with Kobe Bryant, with a high draft pick, and with presumably a max type of player in free agency? Who's out there that you think can make this happen?
Man, you say that, and I'm like, it made me start thinking about, the great coaches that could possibly do something like that. But first, I'll say this, is that it has to be someone that understands, the culture of L.A., And what I mean by that is, because of all the fanfare, knowing how to handle the media, knowing how to handle the players within, keeping them focused on the task at hand and the games that are going on as compared to who's coming to the games, all the stars and things of that nature, and having them have a workman's attitude because they have not accomplished anything. You did not make the playoffs this season, and you have Kobe coming off of an injury. He wants to be better, and someone that can communicate with him. And so with all that being said, Izzy, my thoughts were of Nate McMillan. Nate McMillan is a players coach, someone who understands the game, someone who's been there as far as getting to the finals as a player and taking a team deeper in the playoffs than expected in Seattle with the teams that he coached there. But he also has a relationship with Kobe as far as the Olympic team is concerned. He knows how Kobe thinks. He knows how he works. He knows his work ethic. And I think that you're not going to get, Greg Popovich or even coaches along that line, because they're already tied up doing things right now. So you're not going to get those type of individuals. So I hope that people will, keep a sense of realistic attitude when it comes to, the process and who the Lakers can possibly get.
Oh, I see how it is. See, with Mike D'Antoni, you can't stay realistic with the perspective. You say he did a terrible job, but the next coach, you're already saying, hey, take it easy on this guy. They're in a bad situation. I think Mike D'Antoni got a raw deal, but we'll move on to 3 coaches that could possibly be playing for their playoff lives tonight. We'll discuss that after this quick break.
Coming this summer, the 2014 FIFA World Cup from Brazil. Every goal.
The shot, Jonathan scores! The USA leads by 2!
Every save.
Here's Germany up. Steal. Close. In the box. The shot is stopped.
Every match. Where wherever you are this summer. Take the FIFA World Cup with you. It's on ESPN Radio and the ESPN Radio app.
It gives us a lot of confidence, but as you see in this series, the home team has lost majority of the game. So, they're a great team. They're going to come out and play Thursday hard. The season's on the line. So we just got to be prepared and just come out and compete at a high level.
That was Hawks guard Shelvin Mack. His team's up 3-2 on the Indiana Pacers, and Frank Vogel, who, again, one of those coaches that could be playing for his job this postseason, especially in this first round, let's say, with his team down 3-2 and the number one seed. Bruce, this has been sort of a very perplexing series. Obviously, the collapse by the Pacers has been perplexing, but the series in itself has also been, because you got Game 2, the Pacers all of a sudden look like they've recovered. They blow out the Hawks, go into Atlanta with momentum, lose. Then you got Game 4, which I thought was a more important game for them because it was a tight game that they pulled out down the stretch. You had real genuine, what looked like anyway, genuine emotion from guys, especially from Roy Hibbert, even though he was on the bench, and really cheering his guys on. I don't know what you're going to get from this group. Well, the one thing you can sort of put down in pen is Paul George is going to give you a double-double, whether it's an efficient double-double, whether it's, close to a triple-double and he mixes some assists in there. He's going to give it what he's got. I don't know what else you're going to get from this group. And, I would like to think their pride will really come through in this one and do something to sort of maintain this series, but also keep their coach's hopes alive of keeping his job if they like him at all. So I'm going to go ahead and guess that the Pacers show some of their best of this series, their best basketball of this series tonight, but I have no idea if I'm very confident in that, Bruce.
Well, if you don't have any idea, Izzy, if you're confident in it, who does? No, I get what you're saying, Izzy. We're talking about a team that 4 months ago, we're talking about them possibly representing the East in the NBA Finals. And now it's such a drastic turn or a change of events as far as you're not getting the production out of the guys that you once did. You're not getting the defensive play. And now, unfortunately, it's always going to be the coach's deal as far as what was he doing? Why was he not able to motivate these guys to play a certain way? I think it's so unfair, Izzy. I think this is where players need to be held accountable for their actions or lack of there is. You look at Roy Hibbert now. He's not giving you production. George Hill's not giving you production. And Lance Stevenson, he gives a great effort, but now it seems like he's trying to do too much because the team is in disarray. The only consistent players that I think that you've had thus far has been David West and Paul George, as far as and Scola and C.J. Watson getting back.
Scola's giving it to you on the offensive end.
Yeah,
Scola's been a problem on the defensive end.
But that you've known that for quite some time, and so when you have those scenarios, it's just you got to go with what's going to have you to be in a position that you want to be in. A perfect example right now is the San Antonio Spurs. Danny Green hasn't been playing well or playing a lot of minutes. And so what did Pop do? Okay, well, I got to get somebody else in there that will help us. And, again, it's not about individuals. It's about the team. The coaches are at such a disadvantage when it comes to player loyalty and things of that nature. This team, they've had to – I think the first problem was that Indiana has tried to change their style of play against Atlanta because of the way Atlanta plays. I think when you're secure in what you do, Izzy, you stick to your game plan and you let the other team make adjustments. They have not been able to do that. And go ahead.
No, I just think that there's only so many guys you can rely on. They tried to throw in Chris Copeland in there for 20 minutes, and it was fine. He did nothing special. They backed off on Luis Scola because defensively he'd been a problem. He only played, I think, 8 minutes in that game. They've been very, very seldomly using Evan Turner, finally acknowledging that he's more problem than solution. To me, I think you ride with 6 guys in this. Not just 6, but you give these 6 guys the majority of the minutes until they ask to come out. And that's Paul George, David West, Lance Stevenson, C.J. Watson, Jan Mahimi. And if you need a 6th, I guess you go with George Hill, who didn't have a bad game last time out. In fact, it was 6 for 12 for 16 points. So I think you roll with those guys and you say, look, just do it for us. Just whatever it is you guys have. You guys can play well together. You move the ball well. We got a good balance of inside with David and outside with the shooting of George and Hill and Stevenson. We got drivers, and they're all defenders. And I think you go with that group, and you just have to really avoid the big explosive quarters for Atlanta. They've had, whether it be the third quarter in Game 1, the second quarter in Game 5, they've had these big moments where either Jeff Teague or those three-point shooters just kind of go off. And, man, I know, Scott didn't have a big series up until then, but just because he hadn't had a big series doesn't mean you can leave him open to shoot threes the entire game in that Game 5. So they just really need to focus in on the defense on the perimeter, run them off those three-pointers, and avoid those big quarters and the turnovers that help Atlanta get easy points. And it sounds easier said than done, but, man, the Pacers have got to do something, or this will be one of the most embarrassing finishes to a season, not to mention, and this is no offense to the Hawks, not to mention the second round between the Wizards and the Hawks would be far less interesting than it would be if it was Wizards-Pacers, just because, frankly, that's a team that was, under 500 for the season and doesn't have a whole lot of star power. But we're going to move on to Oklahoma City and Memphis.
We got to impose our will from the beginning of the game, but we got to be locked in defensively. We gave up too many points to start the game, and we got to continue to move the ball. I think I liked our offense tonight. We could have made more shots, but I liked the way it moved a little bit. And it got sticky sometimes, but defensively we have to be way better. We got to guard all their movements, and we got to guard their three-point shooters when they come in the game and rebound the basketball.
That was Kevin Durant after his team lost Game 5 to go down 3-2. To the Memphis Grizzlies, and the Grizzlies can close out at home tonight, which, again, just continuing with the theme, could put Scotty Brooks' job in jeopardy. We've had portions, I know we talked about it, Bruce, during the season where Kevin Durant was kind of questioning the team's defensive strategy, especially when they're blitzing the high pick and rolls and having other teams, quote, figure it out. Actually, I don't think he said figure it out. He was about to say figure it out, but he changed it. And then and you see this series that, Kevin Durant is sort of way too comfortable, in my opinion, in that decoy role the last game or so. Tony Allen's in his head. It doesn't seem like the team is coached up enough to really have a counter or to have somewhere else to go when Durant's not going, because it just seems like Westbrook kind of takes things in his own hands, and that's hit or miss given his shooting percentages. To me, Bruce, I think this is not on Scott Brooks, although I think there's plenty of reason to criticize him, and if he did lose his job, I wouldn't be shocked. But to me, this is on Kevin Durant. This is on the arguably, people could argue, the best player in the game today.
I'm arguing because,
No, I'm arguing with that too. I think this has made it more evident that LeBron is still the best player in the game, even though Durant's going to win the MVP this year. But even if you are the second best player in the league, and even if Russell Westbrook isn't top 10, if he's top 15, that's still really good. And then you got Serge Ibaka, who in this last game gave you, 15 and 12. Like, for example, if Chris Bosh gave you that, if you're the Miami Heat, if he ever gave you 15 and 12 in a game, you'd say, okay, that's enough from him. They should win that game. The Thunder should be able to rely on their superstars to win games. And right now, Kevin Durant is folding. And I've said this in a couple of other areas, Bruce, whether it be TV or radio. If it was LeBron James in this same kind of funk in a first-round series, he would be getting murdered. And he did in those finals in 2011 when he played something like this, and it was inexplicable. And here you have Kevin Durant playing like this, and he needs to step up. Otherwise, he deserves a large share of the criticism.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree with you more, Izzy. The fact that Coach Brooks is the same individual that took this team to the finals. Now, I know you had some different players then, but nothing has really changed there. I think Kevin has continued to improve as a player, but it comes down to the fact that he's not producing. And this is where you need your superstar, as you said, Izzy, what people feel is the MVP of the season. It's hard to look at him as an MVP with the struggles that are taking place. Usually when you have a player with his talent, at some point they figure it out. You can change it up for a while and make it a guessing game, but Memphis has been consistent in what they've done with Kevin Durant. Get tight on him, bother him, push him off the spots that he wants to be on, and when he drives to the basket, let's collapse the lane. And it makes me think of last season what Greg Popovich did with LeBron James, getting LeBron to think instead of just play. this isn't the same scenario. They haven't shown Kevin Durant something that they change up in the midst of the game. It's been physical. It's been just more about, hey, we're going to allow our wearing style of defense to wear him down. And that's what I've seen more than anything else, Izzy. He's still getting his shots, but at some point you got to say, you know what, I'm not selling for a jump shot. I know I'm open, but I'm struggling right now. I need to see a couple of layups go in. And what I don't like about what I've seen thus far is when he misses a shot, he had a layup go in and out the other night, and he just, his shoulders slumped, and he was disgusted with it. So what? They're calling you the MVP right now. We don't know if that's going to happen or not, which, maybe Izzy does, and he's not sharing with me. But you can't be that emotional on that, because now what's happening, they're not having the success that they were having before, and now it's more pressure upon him, and he's put that pressure upon himself, rightfully so, because he is their go-to guy. Now, I must say this as well, Izzy, is that he and Russell Westbrook, they're taking way too many shots. Way too many. I say him and Russell Westbrook. If they both took away 7 shots of what they're taking right now and got better quality shots, I think you see a rise in their shooting percentages, and you will see a distribution of others getting shots as well, because they're creating stuff for others. And then the game would come to them so much easier. You look at it's just a difference to me when you see Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, they're at 25 to 30 points, and then maybe Reggie Jackson gets in there with 15, and then it goes to single digits after that. That doesn't help their ball club.
Well, you mentioned Reggie Jackson. This series might be over if it wasn't for Reggie Jackson already scoring 30-plus in Game 4 to save Durant. You mentioned them settling for jump shots. Well, I don't think this is much of a surprise. Memphis has outscored Oklahoma City by 62 in the paint in this series. And, and when you talk about varying it out, the offense anyway, nobody shot great in that Game 5, but Westbrook and Durant combined to shoot 37%. The rest of the Grizzlies were 43%. So even if it's a little bit better shot, you go ahead and you trust the Cephalosas and the Ibakas and the Derek Fishers of the world a little bit more than you have, especially when you got a defender like Tony Allen who's been in Durant's head. So I'm telling you, it's gonna be really interesting to see how Durant is treated if he loses this first round, because all the indications where he's ready to sort of take over. This was going to be his season. He's tired of finishing second. Well, he's not going to finish second in MVP, but he's going to finish far from second in the championship race if he doesn't shake out of this slump. Or shake Tony Allen rather. It's more than a slump. It's the defense playing its part. But let's move on to the last game of the night. It's going to be Clippers-Warriors.
It would be ideal to not come back here for Game 7. Obviously the pressure's on them, and they're fighting for their season right now. So we're going to have to play our best basketball of the season, bottom line.
That was J.J. Redick discussing Game 6 in Oakland tonight. The Clippers lead the series 3-2 after taking Game 5 113-103 in an emotionally charged game at Staples Center. But this one goes back to Oracle, and it's going to be emotionally charged for a different reason. The fans obviously want to keep their team in it and push them toward a Game 7 in Los Angeles. But within that team, Steph Curry, David Lee, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, these guys who Mark Jackson has given the freedom to perform, and they performed well under him, they want no part of Mark leaving this team, of Mark losing his job, which has been rumored to happen if they lose in this first round. And I think they're going to play as passionately as they've played in this series, even more so than they did in Game 4, which we saw turned out to be a significant Golden State win. And I think Golden State pulls this out because of how badly they want to make things look for Mark Jackson, which, even if he does lose in this Game 6 or even in Game 7, Bruce, I think the Warriors management's finally going to take things into perspective and say, okay, look, If you look at the records, we've gotten better under Mark Jackson. If you look at the player development, guys have gotten better under Mark Jackson. And if you look at the depth of the West and the circumstances they had to play through without their rim protector and Andrew Bogut, which has allowed DeAndre Jordan to go crazy, you could give him plenty of excuses as to why they should have gotten blown out in this series, and here they are pushing to go to a Game 7. So I do think that his job is still going to be on the line unfairly, but I think the Warriors are going to really play this as hard as they've played and really pull this one out for their coach. They don't want him to go out, especially on his home court.
Right, and it's unfortunate, Izzy, that all the distractions that Mark has had to deal with this season, I mean, we've seen it where, coaches being fired and all the uproar and the mess of people recording conversations and things of that nature. It's just it's been so many distractions for a team that left last season on such a great note. And to have to deal with all the issues that they've had to deal with this season is just unfortunate. And whenever you start talking about coaches and the jobs that they're doing, you said it, Izzy, Andrew Bogut's not playing. And now they are, in the midst of a series, down 3-2 against the Clippers. This is no pushover team that they're playing. This is a team that, under new leadership in Doc Rivers, they have all-stars in Chris Paul and Blake Griffin, and then an emerging defender in DeAndre Jordan and J.J. Redick, shooter. This is a very good team they're going against. This isn't some run-of-the-mill team that just happens to beat them on a couple of plays, Izzy. You add the effect of what Andrew Bogut can do for that ball club during this grinded out type of series. And we know for a fact, Izzy, we know how Blake Griffin plays whenever someone brings the physicality to him. That has brought the physicality to him in the past, like Zach Randolph and when they played against Memphis last season. So it's unfortunate that that is a possibility, because I think Mark has done a fantastic job in Golden State. And I like the fact that players, they want to do the best job they can, and they understand that all they can do is just win. And I'm sure it's going to be electric in the arena once they play. It's a great venue to watch a game and to be a part of things, but it's just so unfair if this is something that Mark Jackson's going to have to be judged upon as far as the season he did. He's taking them to back-to-back playoffs, and you're talking about firing a guy? Get out of here. Who's out there that could do a better job than that with that group?
Interesting you asked me that question when I answered the same thing about Mike D'Antoni. And I think the answers are pretty similar. There's not many out there right now that could do better. I mean, look, you want to take a more established coach and say he could do better than Mark Jackson, could have done better than Mark Jackson this year, that's fine. But this is also, and it might just be true, like Stan Van Gundy, for example, maybe they win 54 games instead of 51 with him in there. Whatever. He's still growing with this group, and those guys like him and they like playing for him, and I still think they will continue to improve as the years go on if they can keep that core together, including the home group. But needless to say, Bruce, we all love Game 7, so I'm pulling for 3 wins from the teams that are down 3-2 tonight, and that way we can get 3 Game 7s at least coming up. But I guess we're all going to see what happens. But that's going to do it for this edition of the NBA Lockdown Podcast. For Bruce Bowen, I'm Israel Gutierrez. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to the NBA Lockdown. For more great podcasts, visit the Pod Center page at ESPNradio.com.
For his birthday, I want to send my godson to a playoff game. With the 4-star rated Western Union app, I can send him money conveniently from anywhere and make sure it gets there by tip-off. WesternUnion.com is making things so simple nowadays, and right now, they've got a special promotion going on. Download the free Western Union mobile app, and if you're a new customer, you can send money for 0 fee by using the promo code 2014-2014.
One discount per transfer, no cash value, void where prohibited. This offer expires May 18th. Western Union also makes money from currency exchange.